Well, a couple of years ago I wrote a book called An Australian's Stories, which was first released in German because I'm living in Germany these days, and about a year ago I released a version in English. And my first story in the book was one called Cowboys, mit Cowboys funktioniert immer. That was quite popular with the Germans, so I thought I'd read that chapter in English, so those people who have read the German version can hear it in English, and for you English speakers you can hear it for the first time. So the Australian stories, it always works for the Cowboys. Living in the bush in Queensland, I wanted to be the quintessential bushman. Naturally that required that I could ride a horse. I had been living in the area long enough that I knew a few people who owned horses in the area. One particular couple, who were also new to the area, owned a nearby property and had a horse which they made available for me to ride. We had a job in hand, of course, that required the use of said horse. We needed to find a runaway cow that they had lost. So we went out on our horses and travelled over the land looking for the runaway. The beginning of our search saw us riding at a walking pace across the broad flatlands of the Darling Downs in Queensland. The land is what is known as semi-desert or also swamp forest. Most of the time the land is hot and dry. It borders the more desert-like regions of central southern Queensland. The land is mostly covered by dry, tough grass known as spear grass, which grows small spiky spear-like seeds that stick in the socks and trouser legs, making walking through it quite unpleasant and requiring many hours of carefully picking out the burrs after any wanderings through it. There are a variety of mixed trees that belong to many types of country. Large cypress pines dot the area along with the ubiquitous eucalypts such as the ironbarks. Also mixed in are paperbarks and other swamp-friendly trees. The strange mix of trees is down to the fact that the land is hot and dry and rarely receives any rain. It rains seasonally in the summer, if the locals are lucky. Rain usually means a flood as the land is so flat. The area will mostly only receive about 600 millimetres of rain, or in some years 1,000. Mostly this rain comes at around November, and in one or two showers the whole lot comes down. In these times, or in other rarer years when more rain comes, the entire area is underwater, as it is so flat and the soil is so hard that there is literally nowhere for it to go. So as we searched for the runaway cow, we weaved our way through the occasional shrubby clumps of trees and other lonesome trees dotting the spear grass covered plains. Currently we were in a time of severe drought, and with not much water around, we knew that the best place to look for stray animals would be near the rare spots that provided water. So a meandering path was purposely leading us toward a waterhole when we saw the wayward cow. Our precise location was a problem. We were nearing a forested section where the rather uncooperative cow would be able to run and escape. That meant that we would have a difficult and dangerous task if we attempted to run after it on horseback. A multitude of small holes, fallen logs and other obstacles added to the problem. As we attempted to slowly approach the animal, it stubbornly moved a little further away. After our long search in the hot sun, patience was wearing a little thin. I always like to think of myself as a logical man, so I suggested that we wait a minute and make a plan to catch what was essentially a wild animal. Cattle in Australia tend to be a little wild. They are often breeds that are able to withstand extremes of heat, cold and dryness. In the desert country it is common to experience days in the high 40s followed by dramatic drops in temperature during the night. Despite being in the north, the temperature can drop to -15 at night on some winter nights. These conditions require tough animals if they are going to survive. They are often left to fend for themselves in the bush and recaptured later to be branded or sold off. They must defend themselves against the elements and wild dogs or dingoes alike. They are not often friendly or willing to come in. After a brief pause while looking at the distant cow, I had an idea. I suggested that some of us move off to the side and from a distance circle around the back of the cow. When this had been done, the cow could be driven towards the man who would catch the cow. He could stand still and the cow would not see him. I knew this plan would work as I had a previous experience with an angry bull a few years before. They have bad eyes, and if one stands still they won't see you. That is a good subject for another story, which we'll allude to later. The locals weren't too impressed with my idea. The herding part of the doubling behind them sounded like it would work, but how would we catch the cow? I suggested that it could be lassoed the way American cowboys always do it. My companions suggested that I should try it if I thought I could. I thought that the hard part would be the lassoing, but I was willing to give it a try. In Australia, the American style of saddle is the most popular. It has a good settled-in riding position with a horn at the front which can be used as a grip to hold for support. One can also wrap the rope around it to help capture animals. My greatest problem was actually to get the rope around its neck. So we enacted our plan, much to everyone's amusement. I was cautiously optimistic, but nobody else believed that I would succeed. I was obliged to try it though, having been foolish enough to suggest it. The cow was duly driven towards me after they had spent half an hour doubling back behind it. I made as large a loop as I could in the rope, and as it came closer, made my move. The cow doubled back and ran, so I galloped my horse after it before things could get out of hand, and of all miracles, I managed to get in perfect position to slip the rope over its neck. Then everything went wrong. The cow veered off away from me suddenly, and I didn't have time to get a turn of rope around the saddle horn. I held my grip stubbornly, but that cow ripped me right off the back of my horse, and I found myself being total on the ground on my feet as if I was water skiing, except for the fact that I was on dry land. I could hear the cow bellowing and the profuse laughter of my companions. I couldn't hold on much longer, and we were headed for the trees when I had a spontaneous idea. As the cow ran between the two trees, I dived sideways, forcing the rope against one of the trees. I continued to run in the circle around the tree, and the friction slowed up and then stopped the cow. I had caught it. I had made many foolish mistakes on that day, but luck was on my side, and I had not only caught the cow but gained the respect of the locals. There were many beers and many a laugh had later at this misadventure. I hope you liked that. Thank you.